All right. Thanks, everyone. I have a very special guest here on the Kyokushin Shuffle, episode 6. And this man is 50 years in Kyokushin Karate. Please welcome, everyone, Shihan Lance from Bendigo, Victoria. Shihan Lance, how are you?
Very good, thank you, Sensei Patrick.
What an honor it is to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you're not quite accustomed to putting on some headphones and using your mobile phone to have a chat with someone. It's your first time, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, maybe it might be my last. I don't do interviews, so we'll see how we go.
Well, what an honor it is to talk to you, Shihan. Shihan, this is a fun chat, like I said, and it's an honor, and more so. I don't know how we're gonna put an hour together of your 50 years, but to give it the due respect that it deserves. But it is to just have a chat, and I would love a lot of people out there to hear you and understand what you've done for Kyokushin, what you're doing in the community in Bendigo. Oh, I can go on and on and on, but I appreciate your time once again. Awesome. Shihan, how the hell did you get started in Kyokushin Karate?
Well, a mate of mine, his name is Lance. We both were playing squash. It was Tuesday night, and he noticed there was an ad for a karate demonstration in Bendigo. Yeah. So we forego that squash night, and then I got there and thought, geez, this is pretty good. And because I thought black belts had to be huge, like, brick toilets, blocks, but this guy, Laurie Lee, was the first instructor we had.
Wow.
I'm not sure where he is nowadays, but yeah. So we had Laurie Lee, and we signed up, and away we went. And she hated the push-ups, and and the floor where we were training in McRae Street, Bendigo, the floor was full of splinters. So my lovely wife Heather would pluck those out after a good training session. So that's when we started back in 1969.
1969, and Kyokushin started officially in 1964.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
So
a guy by the name of Ivan Zavichenis.
Yes.
I think that's how you pronounce it, or Zavichenis. He was a judo expert, and he would bring these karate people up to Bendigo once a week.
Right.
So we got a variety of instructors. So Laurie Lee was there for about, I'm not sure how long, but he was there for a while. And then we had a guy by the name of Paul Mantello. Now, I think Paul Mantello's gone on to become the head person of a style close to Kyokushin. I'm just trying to think of the name. Ashihara.
Oh, wow. Ashihara,
yeah. Become Ashihara. We also had an instructor before Shihan Eddie came, and we had another guy by the name of Bruno. I don't know his surname, but Bruno could not speak very good English.
Okay.
But his techniques were incredible. He was very strong. And he taught us a lot of the raishui, the dodging and evading techniques that I still utilize nowadays. So, we had it was a good mixture of people.
How cool.
So we went for our first grading.
Yeah.
And this guy come along, this long-haired, big bearded guy, Eddie Emin.
Hanshi Eddie Emin. Look at this, yeah.
Never seen him before.
Yeah.
He was the sensei back then.
Yeah.
And he came to take the grading. Well, I've never seen anyone jump on someone's stomach before. But that was towards the end of the stamina part of our grading. That's what he did. And crikey, we all just couldn't believe that this guy was doing what he was doing. So after that, he took the grading, and then eventually, a short time after, then he became our main instructor.
Okay.
Coming up every Tuesday night with Ivan Zavichenis. And yeah.
Wow, look at that. And I've spoken to you many times, and I have never heard that that story, and I'm sure that's a fascinating start to heading our way into the great Hanshi Eddie Emin, who you've been a student of, and may I just apologise, congratulations on your 50th year anniversary this year in training in Kyokushin. I was very fortunate to be invited by Sensei Colin, one of your students, to attend that event, and there was no way I was missing it. It even got to a point I brought my son up to join us, but we'll get to that a bit later. Can you walk us through now? Again, we've got an hour, and talking about Hanshi Eddie, he's going to be.
Well, as I said,
but the floor is yours.
He was a sensei then, and I must say, a very vicious sensei.
Right.
He's sparring and fighting. He left nothing left. He would just clean you up every time. He would he'd put on all his gear. You had no chance against him.
Really?
No chance.
Wow.
He was just like a dynamo. He'd just walk through you like nothing else, And they were good. I had a bit of trouble fighting one of the brown belts at one stage, and but he coached me along. The brown belt was a much heavier person than myself, and I was having a bit of difficulty with that. And he coached me along, and after a while, I was actually able to beat this guy.
Yeah.
Much to my pleasure, because he was controlling me, and I was able to take control of the fight, which I wanted to do. I was very happy about that.
And at that time, was there a big influence on kumite? What was the big influence, or what was the distinction in the early 70s there?
In the early 70s, I think the training sessions were about 2.5 hours.
Right.
And a lot of training was on the Eidegecko, like in Zen Kutsu-Dutch, moving forward and back. A lot of basics. And then after that, you would do stamina, and then you would do kumite. So back then, Bruce Lee was very popular around, I think it was around the late 70s.
Early 70s. He passed away in 73, so early 70s. Yeah.
Early 70s. Okay.
But then his movies came out later on in those. 70s. Yeah.
So,
you're
but
right.
his influence on martial arts, I'm sure. Well, in Bendigo, it had a big impact, because our club, we had 2 classes of 60.
Wow.
A beginner's class, and a advanced class. So one round of free fighting was 30 fights.
Yeah.
That's why the sessions were 2.5 hours long. Yeah.
So when you got to start your training under Hanshi, and even more so, him coming up, when was the, I guess, part where you all started to realise how big Kyokushin was becoming around the world?
Yeah.
Was that something that, I mean, and I mean it with all due respect, in the 70s, we're not talking internet here. We're not talking.
You're quite right. You're quite right.
We're not talking. TV. Was and again, I mean it with respect. So how was this communicated, and how was this known?
Well, it was basically from training, from the experienced instructor, which was Sensei Eddie at that stage, but now Hanshi.
Yes.
And he would pass on his information to us, and then the difficulty, as you just mentioned, was for us to try and research. There was nothing about.
Yeah.
As you said, there's no internet. There's none of that sort of stuff.
No.
So we were actually dinosaurs.
Yeah. So then when you're hearing of the opportunity or the, hey, this man's gone to Japan, or these people are flying in from Japan, when did that start to, I guess, influence you in some way? And what was it that started to influence you once you started to get your hands dirty with everything?
Well, I guess I started to get, I did the Q grades right through to Shodan.
Yes.
Here in Bendigo, although the Shodan grading was actually in Geelong. back then. I think Gary Vickers. I don't think it was Gary Vickers. It was some other instructor. But yeah, we went to Geelong. It was a big grading then.
Right.
Back in 1970 something or other. But then I started to realise that I wanted to become better at this art.
Okay.
But by that time, though, we'd already been adding extra nights training, a Saturday morning session. So we were already doing 3 sessions a week, even back as Q grades, because we realised 1 session a week wasn't enough.
Okay.
And then, so we just went from there. And then when I took over the running of Kyokushin in Bendigo, then I just started to open clubs in Castlemaine, and Charlton, and et cetera, et cetera. So I was running a lot of dojos back then.
Okay, so you were the head instructor and just going from town to town as such in those areas.
Yeah.
Right.
So my records tell me that I've been running camps since 1972 or something like that, for 40 years.
Wow.
2 or 3 camps a year, plus Hanshi Eddie's camp. We've had lots of
camps.
Involvement in projecting Kyokushin to the students. Yeah.
When was the, I guess, first time you then went to Japan? And
1994.
Okay. All right.
We Hanshi and I had booked in to go to train at the Branch Chiefs training camp.
Right.
And the Uragara was up in the mountains, it was.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was Sosai passed away 2 days before that.
Oh my!
So it was a fairly sad time.
Right.
Yeah. So Shogi Matsui took the actual training camp.
Yeah.
So he was busy on the phone a lot at that time, because I obviously trying to sort out what was going to happen with Kyokushin.
And you were there with Hanshi Eddie?
Yes, yeah.
And how was he at that time? And I mean that with respect, like how, two odd days or within a week of him passing.
It was a sad time. We went to Hombu. Once we got to Japan, we went straight to Hombu, and there wasn't many people around. There were some photos of Sosai on the front counter. I picked one up, and Hanshi picked up one, and I've got one still in my dojo now, that from that particular trip.
Right.
But it was a sad time, but we still trained. We still trained with a good heart.
Wow.
But saddened.
Yeah, saddened. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and again, so you've started to get dojos up and happening in Bendigo. The students and the, I guess, environment and the community were obviously starting to grasp Shihan, but you were Sensei Lance, I'm assuming, at that time, and the Sensei status back in the 90s was obviously quite rare. It's not as common as what it is now, but obviously things are evolving, and there's lots of other students. But the Sensei tag was quite prestigious, hey?
Yes, it was back then. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But so, and the Kyokushin was the first karate group to be in Bendigo, and then Taekwondo came, I think, 12 months after that. But I believe that judo was fairly strong in Bendigo, but I wasn't interested in the judo side of things.
Yeah. So when you're going through this part of your mid 90s, you started to, how many trips did you, or when did you get to Hawaii as well under Shihan Bobby Lowe?
Yeah. Hawaii. We started to go to Hawaii in '89.
Okay. All right.
89. That was my first trip, and that was great. That was just fantastic, because the Canadians were good fun. I won't go into too much detail, but we had a lot of fun after training.
I know what you mean. Well, so talk us through your experience, I guess, there, and again, I haven't explained to many that you've got so much experience in some other forms of martial arts as well. So you're not just a Kyokushin master, you have so much other expertise. But what I'm getting at is, when you saw Shihan Bobby Lowe's training and all that, can you walk us through how that got you, even more excited, I guess?
Yeah, well, that was where we were introduced to Goshin Jitsu, which is a form of very effective self-defense.
Yes.
So we learned that, and we studied it and brought that back here to Australia. We applied that to our students, and it was great. It was a good form of self-defense. But I also, later on, not so much from going to Hawaii, but later on I became involved in a training session with, it was at Tino Sabarano's dojo in 1985, 86.
Okay.
A Japanese instructor came out. He was teaching Sai techniques and bow techniques.
Here we go.
Back then. And then that's when I started to get an interest in weapons.
Yes.
Back then. All right. So I've kept that bow training, as you know.
Yes.
I keep teaching the bow training.
Yes.
And I keep developing new techniques with those as well, new from my point of view. The Sai, my sensei, Colin, is very good at the Sai training, but I don't necessarily do that.
Now, can I cut you there? Yeah. Sorry, and this is a big part of why I wanted, which is going to be the awesome part of chatting to you. Your training and your methods from there. Can you give us a bit of a platform or a bit of a perspective of how this has influenced your teaching and what you've, I know Sensei Colin and yourself, worked hours and hours and hours. This isn't just, if I could explain it, or if you could explain it, how the different type of training and what it takes.
Well, the different type of training is becoming familiar with a particular weapon that you wish to become good at. Yep. So therefore, I just say, take the weapon, feel it, use it, swing it around, figure out, and just learn to twirl it over your head and just get the feel of the weapon. And then we can start teaching the various katas and combinations there. And more recently, in 2010, I started the other art that I'm interested in as well, is Iaido, which is the art of drawing the sword, a very precise art as well. And it's very, very precise, but it actually enhances Kyokushin.
Explain.
Making me more precise with our moves, our footwork, our hand techniques and balance and the power. It goes hand in hand with the sword training or Iaido and karate. So I've benefited heaps from that.
That's fascinating, isn't it? So did that get to, did the sword component come into your, because of your way of life, or because you were like, next, I want to continue doing something here? Explain to us, and more so the younger generation and us appreciating a man like yourself that goes, I'm studying the bow and I've studied the sai and these weapons and so forth, and now you're going on to the sword. What is it? What was it?
Well, it's simply this, Sensei. I just wish to keep learning.
Unreal. Yeah, no, you know.
I just wish to keep learning.
Yeah.
When I stop learning, that's the end. But but in 1988, I was in Brisbane at a expo.
Okay.
And that expo had, of course, a Japanese pavilion there. And there were some guys doing sword training. And I said to my wife, I wouldn't mind learning that.
Yes.
But I didn't do anything about it until I was at an ISCA tournament in 2010.
Okay.
And I come across a guy that was very good with the sword.
Right.
And I said to him, do you do private lessons? He said, no, get the training on a Sunday and I'll teach you then. And it's just gone from there. So.
And I'm going to dabble with a big word here that gets, missed at certain times. Commitment to do this / the 50 years and then again learning some new art or a new form, the commitment. You travel from Bendigo to the eastern suburbs of Melbourne to learn how to use the sword weekly, correct?
Yep.
And you're teaching nearly 3 or 4, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 classes plus a week across all your
15 classes a week.
15 classes a week.
15 classes a week.
Plus
on a Sunday, I travel to Bandura to do some sword training or Aikido. So most of my training period, this current one is 42 days without a break.
I see.
Is that a bit hard to comprehend?
No, got it.
So when you use the word commitment, that's my commitment. Is I'll go for 42, 60 days without stopping a break. I don't need a break because I enjoy everything that I do. So
of course.
It's
just automatic.
Yeah. And the travel like we were at the Shambili's camp, and then we were at Hanshi's camp, and I was up at Charlton. I clocked over 1,300 Ks in 10 days just doing martial arts. I mean, this is normal for me.
Yes. And for those listening, I made my way to Bendigo about 4 months ago. And, I mean, again, I apologized at the time, but I was like, sorry, it's been a while, in coming up to Bendigo. And you were like, well, yeah, what the hell took you guys so long? What's going on? It's just up the road. And compared to someone like yourself that has definitely put a lot of us to shame in respect of the commitment side and the discipline of learning, the arts.
It gets down to this, basically. If you want to do something, if you want to succeed at something, just do it. Just jump in the car if you have to travel and just do it, because you're a long time dead.
And this is a nice part to bring up. You've been a teacher for so long, Shihan Lance, and I say so long again respectfully. In just I like to tap into bits and pieces of who I'm talking to here, and I'm sure there'd be some really amazing, parts that if you could share with us, the teaching side of, again, whether it's Kyokushin or whether it's just life. I'd love to just hear, how you talk to some of your students. And again, not all of us might be able to travel to Bendigo every week to hear how you, go about it.
I treat the students, of course, with respect, and I expect respect back. But each of the students have their own personality. So some of them, like I have some students who have issues like Asperger's and things like that, where the learning is not as fast as perhaps other people.
Yeah.
So you just got to take very careful and slow progress to try and encourage these people to become better at the martial arts. And then there's other students who are, a lot of my students are over 50. So you can't treat those sort of people, you can't go as hard as what we used to back in the 70s.
Sure.
You've got to try and give them something to look forward to without making them sore and stiff too much the next couple of days afterwards. So we spend a lot of time with those type of people improving combinations and kata. I'm very big on the bunkai of kata and how it should be done, and the position of the hands and the feet.
Right. Yeah. And then and where in your syllabus / teaching have you encouraged, and I've spoken to you about this, when you're encouraging the bow, like you encourage your kids to even partake in the bow training of this?
Yes. I have on a Tuesday evening, which normally are high grades, black belts, we try and get about 10 or 15 minutes of bow training.
Okay.
And on a Saturday morning, I have quite a few young kids who've shown a good interest in it. So we do about 10 or 15 minutes at the end of a training session on a Saturday for the kids, and they've been getting right into it and becoming quite skillful.
Yes.
So it's just an extension, of course. It's not to take place of karate, but it's an extension of karate. And I think that is very, very important.
Yes. What's your, I guess, you know, the influence that you've had in that community of Bendigo and country Victoria? What are you seeing in this generation? And I put it nicely, this generation, you know, compared to what you would see then, and you've kind of answered it with your students as such, but now you teaching and at this side of things, how are you trying to influence the next generation? What are you seeing, what we should be passing on to our students more importantly now?
That's a very good question. But the thing is, nowadays, we've got to try and get kids away from their devices. That's a big problem for everyone. If we can, then we get them busy being active and getting fit and enjoying their classes. That will help them in the future, as you know. But just getting them away from their devices is a big issue, I think, for people nowadays.
Are you focusing the kids? And I say I'm asking about the kids because, again, on what you're saying, you know, the saying kind of goes like this: in the 70s, Kyokushin was just breaking the foundation and becoming that strongest karate with the first and second, or the first world tournament, and then becoming fighting, and then that boomed karate Kyokushin. Then in that late 80s and 90s was that foundation period of getting it all around the world as well. And then it's starting to come back into this, you know, 2000s, where masters like yourself are at that level where there's no need for kumite now for you guys, but you're falling into that self-defense angle. Are you feeling that side of it as well? And again, you know, I've got older students as well, and I'm trying to explain to them, and Shihan Bill helps me, you know, understand it as well. They're not expected to do what the Kyokushin, you know, tournament fighting and so on. How are you influencing, and what can you share with us in that self-defense side of things?
Well, I wasn't. I did quite a few tournaments in the earlier days, but I suddenly realised that wasn't the whole gambit of karate. I mean, and that's why I was looking at other things like the weapons as well, but not to take it away from Kyokushin. I still love the hard training. I still love pushing people, push-ups, all that sort of stuff, you know.
Yes.
But for the older students, to give them a different path, like we don't have to get a person 50 plus doing 150 push-ups, etc., but we can still get the same effect by using weapons, or just doing the katas really strong and powerful as well. And I think that's giving the older students some direction and commitment to karate for the rest of their life, because they can do that without putting too much stress on the joints, which is what a lot of us have experienced in the past.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. And I think a lot of us out there are seeing masters at that level now that have gone through that 70s and 80s, and we kind of had a chat at the camp about war injuries as you Shians were gesturing, and I had the fortune of sitting at the couch, and everyone was gesturing a knee surgery, knee replacement, hip replacement, shoulder replacement. What are some of the injuries / and I'm sharing it because of the way it was compared to what it is now. What, you know, how are you emphasizing that as well?
Well, as you know, I've had 3 hips and replacements. So, but I never put that down to karate. It's to something else, I'm sure. But,
So,
but look, it's just one of those things. Like, we trained hard in the early days, probably too hard, I think, but it's okay now that in the 2000s we can train a little bit smarter,
right,
and make sure that our limbs are not being stressed too much.
Yeah.
still get the good results.
Yeah.
Yeah, training.
No, there's no doubt about that. What is your, if I was to say this two words, Masoyama, how would you explain him, and what's the influence that he's had on you, the founder of Kyokushin, Sosai Masoyama?
Okay, Sosai Masoyama, I have been very fortunate to have been in his company many times, thanks to Hanshi Eddie.
Oh, yes.
There is a picture of Sosai and Hanshi sitting on the beach in Manly, feeding the seagulls. I think actually you might have been at the camp when I made reference to that.
Yes.
I was one of 3 or 4 fortunate people to be, I guess, observing and making sure things were okay around those masters.
Yes.
So that was in Manly. Another time I was on a water taxi with Sosai, and we headed up to the Hawkesbury River to open a dojo up there. Sosai got in. I couldn't get in because the crowd was it was just too crowded. But yeah, so I was on a water taxi with him and 2 or 3 other people.
Yeah, right.
So just little things like that I was happy to be. And we went to meetings in Sydney and et cetera, when he was here in Australia.
What was the people say he had an aura about him, and what was it that
well, when he came to one of the trips was to this for a tournament at the Sydney Town Hall. When the man walked in there, like I've never felt.
Mm-hmm.
The air was just electrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't use the word, but it was like God had walked in.
Yeah.
And everyone just was quiet and so respectful. It was incredible.
Yeah.
It's similar at the Opera House as well. But I've noted it mostly in the Sydney Town Hall. It was just good to be there.
Yeah.
I think I was doing some judging at that tournament as well. So, yeah.
And did he influence you? Like when you were influence you, and I mean that, was it something that you would, read the books on and watch the documentaries? Because I was gesturing also when we went to Japan and you and I, we've been to Japan a handful of times, which has been great. But in 2005 or so, I was saving money for a VHS / a DVD was just starting to come out. And so when the footage of Masoyama was, in the early 80s and so forth, how were you, moved by them, I guess?
Inspirational. It's
just
you can't emulate that man. You can't do what he's done, but by geez, you can get yourself motivated and become fit and enjoy that part of the association. Yeah. I loved being fit. I'm not that fit nowadays, but I love being super fit back in the early days.
Yeah, that's a good angle. You were motivated by his fitness and strength and that aura of that never give up. Hey.
Yeah, never give up.
Yeah,
never give up.
I've got another one that I want to ask you. When I say the words Eddie Emin, what comes to mind, and what do you what would you like to share when someone says to you, Shihan Lance, give us your thoughts on the legend of Hanshi Eddie Emin and the influence he's been on you?
He has influenced me for sure. And sometimes we don't get along that well. But I've been with him for, I don't know, over 40 years, 45 years. So
walk us through.
Any good relationship is going to be tested from time to time.
Of course.
But yeah, he's influenced a lot of my training. I used to go and train with him and Sensei Joy every Friday afternoon. I travelled down to Melbourne. We were learning stuff called kazushis and things like that, trapping techniques and stuff.
Yes.
And yeah, we enjoyed that type of training. that was, I think, third Dan level down there. And
Okay.
Go to Melbourne.
So what? So 40 odd years being guided by this this legend, and I'll share a little bit. Yourself and I at the camps that we've attended over the last 10, 15 years or so, we always start, well, always meaning respectfully, a certain kohai should be always staying back while everyone goes to sleep. And coincidentally, yourself and I stay back late at night, let's say 11 o'clock on certain nights, and we play a bit of poker with Hanshi Eddie.
Yes, yes.
And
he's such an honest player.
And I, again, have been honoured, and I say that with all due respect. I have been honoured, and I know that, to leave a 7th Dan / 9th Dan playing poker by themselves, but as I gesture to walk off to go to bed and you two yell at me and say, get your ass back here and play poker, I just say, us, and I stay up till nearly 2 o'clock in the morning to play poker. Now, I hope everyone's had a bit of a chuckle there, because if you've ever played poker with a 7th Dan and a 9th Dan, give me a call, because I'd like to know how you handled it, because we definitely have had some fun playing poker. But what I'm gesturing there is the respect that we've or that you obviously show to your master as well. And I guess what I would like you to share with others is how important that is.
It is important to have that rapport. At the end of the day, you're tired from training, but it's a good wind down to sit back with Hanshi and yourself and Sensei Colin and the other person that wishes to play. And it's always light-hearted, and it's a challenge, and sometimes the cards are not dealt with properly, but that's the way it is. They all come out. This last weekend gone, Hanshi actually won some money. He was very, very happy. Very happy.
That's nice.
Very happy. But it's all part of the kohai.
Yes.
We play the game. You win, you lose. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It's all part of the banter that we get on with. I suppose.
Yes. Good word. Yes, and for those that know Hanshi Eddie, it does need to be censored, and but that's the cool bit about it. Shihan Lance, I was leaning to something there. I was very fortunate to come down and see your students and train under you, and a big message to everyone that's listening in Bendigo. I was truly inspired and overwhelmed. Overwhelmed meaning that for the respect that they had for you and Sensei Colin and the standard. And I was lucky to say some words afterwards, and I'm segueing to the standard that you uphold and how important that is. And I thought it was awesome. Give us, I don't want to use the word strict. It's not your strict teaching or anything like that, but the importance of the standard that you guys are upholding. How big is that for you?
Well, that's a good question, Sensei. It's a discipline. I want the students to be able to do things properly, not just half-heartedly.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were fortunate enough to train with us there a couple of months back now, we cranked it up a bit, but that's how I like to train. I like to train the basics hard and fast and sharp. And that makes the students alert and also gets them fitter as well. But I don't like to think the students are going to train like half pace. Give it the best shot. And as I said at that training session, at one stage there, Sosai did say, whenever you train, it should be, as if it's your last training session, so put everything into it. Nice. And everyone on that particular afternoon actually did that. I was very, very emotionally happy about that.
Yeah. I loved it.
And your words after at the conclusion of that training session, I wish someone had taped it, because I would have liked to have.
No, it was my pleasure.
Run that.
No,
listen to that again.
No, it was my pleasure, and that's what I'm sharing. I guess for those that weren't there, the standard that we set under Shihan Billy and my dojo and is very high. And I want the standard, and I expect the standard internally, personally, to be as high as possible, because the people like yourself that have given us this opportunity and this level of commitment / discipline needs to be upheld. We can't let it we can't water it down as such, can we?
Well, this is the word I use. I don't want martial arts or karate diluted.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And they've still got to maintain that crispness, the sharpness, and full effort and commitment, which we've already talked about.
Yes.
That has to be seen as we do that all the time. So, yeah, I'm very, very keen on that, to continue that. I will continue that until I can't do it any further. So.
Yeah, no, that it was great to see, and I say that because, again, we are an art, and there's other martial arts out there, but there's always that feeling that Kyokushin has to have that power and that absolute crisp, technique,
yes.
and that is something that is taken very seriously.
Yes, and that's exactly what I crank up with my students. I really enforce that. Yeah. So it's not so much strict, but just doing the techniques correctly. Yeah.
Shihan, how are you thinking, or how are you feeling at the direction of Kyokushin? You've seen nearly 4 or 5, cycles of it over the last 50 years. How are you thinking it's going?
I think it's going very well and strong and getting stronger. But I think there needs to be the diversification from like this. The tournaments and the fighting is good, and that's part of Kyokushin. But maybe there's other aspects that we could be focusing on as well as. Yeah, I've had some young people. I've had first and second lightweight champions in Victoria many years ago. Yes. I mean, we were doing a lot of fighting back then. I don't have the students that are keen to fight like that now.
Yes.
But if they do come along, I'll certainly train them up and we'll be pursuing the tournaments. But if you haven't got those people desiring to do that, there's no point sort of focusing too much on the actual fighting if you haven't got the guys and girls willing to do it. That's where I have a bit of a void. Is I have a lot of older students, I have a lot of younger ones, but I don't have that mid-range person, like a teenager, an older teenager, but willing to fight. Yeah.
What is it? Yeah, so. We've been to Japan a couple of times together, which has been, a real cool experience. Give us your, pass on to others out there how important you think it is to head to Japan as a part of their journey and the journey of
well, it's a very good question, Sensei. I think a student should set themselves to go and visit and train in Japan. With the Japanese, of course, to get an understanding of how they train, and even get to a tournament, not necessarily participate, but go and see a world-class tournament. I mean, they are magnificent. Well, you've seen many. I've seen quite a few, and they are just they're like the Olympics.
Yes.
And yeah, all students should try and make a pilgrimage to Japan as part of their training.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Part of their journey, I should say. Yeah.
Shihan, what is your, motivation from here? You know, from here, again, you've done so much and you've given so much to so many people and students. There has to be some secret here towards, or if you don't want to reveal your secret, you don't have to, but what deep down is what is your passion, or what is that inner fire that makes Shihan Lance get through 50 years and continue to train and learn? What is it?
Precisely that. I wish to train and continue learning.
Mm-hmm.
And also the other side of that is getting other people to learn, young people to become good little citizens, or older people becoming not ready to sit down on a couch and say, oh, I'm too old to do this or whatever. I had a guy start with me this year, 64 years of age.
Oh.
He rang me up and said, look, Shihan, you've inspired me. I'm doing 150 push-ups a day and sit-ups and all this sort of stuff.
Unreal.
I mean, they're the things, you know, these little comments you get from your students, they're the inspirational things. You don't give up yourself. So you're giving something to other people. You're motivating other people to try and get better. When I see the young kids, you know, they hate doing push-ups, but they come to me and say, oh, I've actually been able to get 30 or 40 push-ups in one go. And you go, yeah, it's, you know, it's starting to get there. Oh, yeah.
That's
motivating people.
That's good. That's good to hear. And I guess in sharing with some that are listening that don't know where Bendigo is, it is in rural Victoria, and there's I'm kind of heading without a little bit of knowledge here, but you know, it's going through the drought season in that area of Australia and Victoria. But there is also a big thing that I'm passionate about, and I'm sure you've seen it in rural Victoria and Australia, is you know, people with depression and people that are going through mental health situations as well. And you would have a fair amount of people that would be on that spectrum or on that level that use this to help them with their jobs, help them with their careers and things like that. What's a message that you want to, you know, if you had something to say?
The message there is, you're quite right, because there's been quite a lot of issues in this region.
Yes.
And a lot of issues with people that I'm working with and karate people. I just say to them to try and focus on at least one training session per week, so that you're having a break from any of those issues that could be dragging you down. And I know in 2 or 3 cases where that actually has got the people through those troublesome times. So it does help.
Nice tip. Yeah. Shihan Lance, we've got probably 3 or 4, 5 minutes left. I guess my next couple of questions, while I've caught you, and again, you've rarely done interviews before, and I appreciate your time with this. And I guess where we're heading from here is can you reveal your age? Are you okay in letting, you've inspired many, I can tell already with what you've been talking about. I'd like them to, if you don't mind, if you can reveal your age.
Oh, my age? Oh, okay. I'm 71.
71 years of age. Now, I appreciate you, and I thank you for saying that, because you're 71 and you're still wanting to learn. You're still, you know, on that cusp of never give, you know, of making sure that, you know, you put everything into what you're doing, right? And I guess martial arts, Kyokushin has been the platform for you, but martial arts has been something that it's your whole life. And I've got giving you the floor here in explaining what Budo and way of life means for you and what it's meant for you.
Well, there was an unfortunate situation for me. I got so busy with martial arts, I didn't look after my young kids.
Okay.
So any message to young martial arts like yourself, make sure you give time to your family.
Awesome.
I was busy doing my thing, and a couple of my kids grew up before I realised it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So make sure, if you've got a young family, give them time.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely take that on board. And the Budo way of life, again, for you, how important has that been?
Very, very important. I have a purpose every day. I wake up, I have a purpose.
You've nailed it. Yeah.
I have a purpose. That's the important thing.
Shihan, yeah, that's a beautiful way to put a stop to, I guess, our chat. That you have a purpose, and by Jingoes, have you done a sensational job, and I appreciate your heads up there in reference to family, and you're an invaluable member to the Kyokushin, Australia and global now. You're a seventh Dan. I wanted to congratulate you and I appreciate your time on your 50th year in Kyokushin. But for those out there, Bendigo Kyokushin is where Shihan Lance is the head and the, I guess, branch out that way. And he's got his Facebook profile there as well. But if anyone wants to ask me anything, please go ahead. But Shihan Lance, have you got anything lastly to just pass on while you've got the floor? Because who knows when you'll ever do another chat like this. And for those that wanted to know or appreciate Heather, thank you, his wife, in organising the phone and what is Zoom and what are we doing here, Sensei. But thank you for taking the time. But the floor is yours, just for as long as you need, just to pass on out there, anything else.
A comment that comes through to me often is, I wished I'd done it. Not me personally, but other people.
Yeah.
So my message is, get out there and do it. Don't let your life zip away.
Awesome. Shihan Lance, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you again. Congratulations and a big us to you and to everyone in Bendigo. Keep training hard. You guys are awesome, and all respect to you and your students. Shihan, thank you very much.
Thank you.